Hi, Bridget. David Wark.
Hi, all.
Hi, David. How are you?
Relieved. Last time.
I'm okay too.
This big event, I got locked out of my office. So I never showed up. It's a famous event now. I was on the other side of the door, literally trying to break into my office while people were sending me texts saying, "Where are you? Where are you?" So I thought I'd get on early today.
Oh my goodness.
I remember that, David.
Yeah. There was a whole story around it. It was, in hindsight, fantastic, but man, was that scary. So
Impactful. It's called trauma. It's impactful.
So
Got to do
I'm
something
glad
about
to
that.
see you and to know that I'm on and it's going to be okay. So hello. So Molly,
Bridget, good luck.
The weekend been taken up with the preparation? I'm assuming yes.
Yeah, certainly today we wanted to get some emails out and make sure everyone was registered and had some questions and things like that. So
Yeah.
hello, Miss Bridget.
You're muted.
You're muted, Bridget.
I may stay that way. Don't you think that's a smart idea? That way you don't get into trouble. You know, if you're muted, your lips move and they can all kind of guess what you say.
Hey, I think you've done a fantastic job, and I want you to know I'm really impressed.
I appreciate, that really goes a long way. I deeply appreciate it because it's been really hard.
Oh God.
Harvey Zarin sent me a really nice note yesterday, and I just reflected back and I said, if we didn't have our management team and this outstanding executive committee and the people who had the foresight on the board of governors and the real passion for ASCH, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be sitting here in this position. So I do appreciate that. I hope it won't be a challenge today, but in the event that it is, we'll, just proceed with grace and dignity.
So Bridget, to support what you're saying and sort of to support your energy, if you will, and Hawaiian indigenous culture, I just today reading.
You're breaking up, David. Sorry. And I really want to hear what you have to say because I very much have studied the whole tenets of that.
Well, today, how's my voice? More consistent?
No. David, why don't you jump out and try to reconnect to the link and see if we can reestablish your audio.
So Bridget, I just want to be clear. I will still introduce Lane in the order of the presenters.
Yes.
And if he isn't able to speak and be heard, then you will give his comments.
His remarks. That's correct.
Is this all right for a sound when the 1 minute is up?
Sure.
Okay.
I think that should be more upbeat, like ra-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. No, just teasing.
Oh, the other.
No, I think the first one is pretty. How about you, David?
Okay. The other question I have is, shall I hold that like that while someone's talking so they know how their minutes are going, or just give the sound at the end?
I would just give a sound at the end. Elsewise, it might feel like they're pressured. Would be my thought, although that's pretty clear.
Okay.
I would mute my phone as well, boy.
And I think Bridget, is when you're doing your opening, if maybe you just play the sound so people know that that's what they're going to hear when their minute is up. I think that would be helpful.
You mean me? You
Yeah,
said,
Yes.
you could.
okay.
Get it,
Yes.
Bridget.
So who's going to start this? Linda, are you going to be the one to open it and start it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I introduce all the panelists and then Chair Daniel will start.
Great.
Okay.
Wonderful. We do have, just so that you all are aware, in addition to David, who we can see, there are other people that are starting to pop on.
Mhm.
So you can see the participant list at any point if you click that
Great.
button.
I'm just so thrilled that the ASCH members want to know more and want to really fully understand it so they can support what we're doing. It's great.
David, you have your presentation ready?
Here.
Awesome. So whenever
Should we
you,
do a quick check? I'll just, let's see. So if I were to,
if you hover at the bottom there and just click share screen,
yeah,
it
I
should
just have
directly
to
go to you.
change the dimensions of the slide. I'll be with you in 10 seconds.
And I have, for Linda, Bridget, I have the bylaws and the reorganization chart that I'll put up whenever you'd like me to.
Okay.
So
Is
just tell,
this coming through clearly enough?
I see ASCH reorganizational proposal.
So as I talk, one of the reasons I wanted to do it is that I'm able to create a little bit more dynamic process as we're talking about different things. So you're seeing stuff unfold on screen?
Yes,
Yes.
very cool.
Okay, great. So it's working. I'll move it out of the way for now.
David, the last thing you pressed when you went to the second extension on my
Yeah.
screen, I couldn't.
It was
see
off the
it.
screen. Yeah,
Okay, I just
I'll
wanted to
move
make
it.
sure you did that.
I'll move it on so that it stays visible.
You know, I'm so appreciative of just all the collaboration with the executive committee and the board of governors to really make this a successful and viable restructuring for everybody. I just think it's so exciting.
I'm so pleased we have so many registrants. I think that's have a question as far as after everybody has a chance for their question. And we got to everybody who's raised their hand. If it's still before 7 o'clock Eastern time, then people will have an opportunity, second opportunity to speak. But if it's already 6 o'clock, they won't, or what are the guidelines there?
Yeah, we need to end this at 7. So if we have time for more comments, I think that's great. But if not, everyone has that opportunity until unless anyone disagrees with that.
Comments or questions?
Right, I have, I don't know that I disagree, but a concern. So is there a way that if people have questions, we can ask them to put them in the chat box so we can get back to them?
We've disabled the chat feature for this call. They're happy to email them to me and I can bring them up to the, we can share them with the executive committee, but this is informational. The vote happens tomorrow. So we are moving forward with that. And this is just their opportunity for them to, I mean, we have given them ad nauseum, I think, a lot of information through Bridget's letters and information. So last chance to learn about it, and then voting is tomorrow.
Molly, this may seem like an odd question, but I don't think I've considered before. Do members of the EC also have to vote, or is our vote? Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I asked.
Yes.
And when you get that ballot tomorrow, David, you need to vote. So the Board of Governors, you voted as executive committee members for the Board of Governors to pass this structure to the membership. But as a member in good standings, you'll vote again this week.
Will do. Happy to.
Good.
So Deb, to answer your question, this is really an opportunity for clarifying questions tonight, not opinions.
Right, but I'm just saying if for some reason people still have questions, they need clarity. I'm not anticipating it. To me, if we want people to vote for it, it makes no sense to not answer the questions.
Right, right. And they will have time. First, different people are presenting, and then we open it up to questions.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying the hard stop at 7 o'clock, if people are asking legitimate questions, makes no sense to me. That's all I'm saying.
I gotcha. Well, we'll just have to see.
Right,
how-
I doubt it will be the case.
Well, and you know, so many times when people ask questions, the responses also answer other questions. So hopefully these questions will be such that everyone will be able to sort of tie into it and go, oh yeah, I get it.
My reaction, Deb, picking up on what you're saying, is that one of the principles or the values of what the organizational restructuring offers is greater responsiveness.
Yeah.
So I don't want in any way to assume that the whole idea of I have a question or a concern, like a email that came to Bridget recently about someone asking for, or to the listserv, someone asking for a peer-led consult group. We want to encourage a back and forth with questions and concerns so that from the bottom up and the top down, people who have questions are connected. So I think even if we just say any topics that we were not addressed, you know how to reach us. We're here.
Yeah. And you know, I love that too, David, because we really what this whole thing is about is making it a dynamic organization so that we can continue to move clinical hypnosis forward and improve training as we go on and meet clinicians' needs and therefore really serve our patients. I mean, that's the whole thrust behind all of this reorganization, is to make that easier to do and give us more options to co-create, the members to co-create a really dynamic organization.
Yeah, I that's my view anyway.
I think that's, I mean, that's the whole intention behind this reorg. And of course, you know, having the bylaws that support the reorganization.
Molly, will you help me if people are raising their hands? Because I can't see all 66 people obviously on my screen at once, so.
Absolutely. Linda, what I will do is as you're calling on people, I'll be screening through my screens to see who else has a hand raised. And then I'll just tell you that person's name so that you can call on them next, or I'll tell you that a few people have questions. Can we hear from so-and-so?
So do you want me to say, and Molly, who's next?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. I mean, if you see someone's hand raised directly, you can certainly call on them. But you and I can go back and forth with that. And if anyone continues to talk for too long, I can click on that participant and mute them or anything like that. I doubt we'll have to do any of that, but I'll just kind of be on the back end monitoring all that and we'll communicate it to you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Sure.
And David Work, it's good to see you.
What's
Thank
the
you,
weather up
Linda.
there?
It's good to see you too. FYI, I'm going to have to bail out sometime during the session. My grandchildren are calling, and family first. It's nothing personal, believe me, and I am totally totally respectful and responsive to this reorganization. Go reorg. But I just want to tell you, if I disappear, fear not.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, Dave, wouldn't it be consistent with your history and your values, sort of passing along your wisdom generation to generation and invite your grandchildren to join us?
Unfortunately, we haven't loosened up the, but my granddaughter, Ani, was the source of my website, 49 Words to Reduce Stress. And if you want to see what a kid can do, 49words.org on the web. And
I've got to look that up.
That's an 11-year-old whiz bang. I mean, she's going to be president of something someday.
That's great.
Oh, that's nice.
I was at a fairground once with the kids, and one of them said, "Papa, let's go on the merry-go-round, the roller coaster." Bill, I don't think so. It scares me, really. I don't feel very good about it. Oh, Papa, use your self-hypnosis. You'll be okay.
And you were.
And I did, and I was. And I wrote it up in the newsletter too.
I love it. I love it.
But they're not old enough to be members yet, so.
That is so cute. Yeah, our daughter at 18, I guess she was 17 or 18 years old, said, Mom, I think I've got it. And I said, yeah, what's that? She says, just how to get through life. I said, oh, tell me, enlightened one. She said, well, you either need to put something into your life or take something out of your life to be happy.
Yeah.
And I thought, whoa, that's powerful.
Yeah, that's good.
You know,
Good kid.
add something new in, just don't do the same thing over and over again. Hello, Maureen, how are you?
Well,
I don't think she heard me. Maureen Turner. Oh, well.
I doubt it's intentional.
Oh, I know. Well, I was going to actually pay her a compliment because I went to a workshop of hers years ago, and it really gave me so many powerful tools to use for people who are traumatized. Yeah, being a physician, I'm not a therapist, but it just was so impactful, and I've helped many people using Maureen's approach. So I just thought she'd like to know.
I'm sure she would, but she's not listening.
I know, I can see that. Well, Linda, you'll have to tell her because I think you're up in her neck of the woods, right?
In Vermont, yep.
Yeah.
Maureen, turn on your audio.
Turner, turn it on.
Turn it on. Oh, it's funny.
Oh, God.
So what collection do you have behind you there, David Work?
Those are owls. Those are owls. Somebody gave me an owl once, and my grandkids, bless their hearts, said, oh, Papa likes owls. And they have been flying into the shelf ever since.
That is the room of wisdom, huh?
I like to think it's a metaphor.
Love it.
And you can imagine I have quite the collection of hippos that everybody keeps giving me.
Yeah.
That may have had something to do with your hippopotamus book. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might have. Because
Or
I
the
never
book may
had
have been
a
something to
hippo
do with the
together.
collection.
Yeah.
Oh. Harvey, hello.
How are you?
Good.
Happy New Year.
Hi, Harvey.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Let's see. How do I get on the view here? Is Cheryl
Bridget?
Daniels here yet?
She's not yet. We're up to about 23, 24 participants. People keep jumping in.
Okay, great. Here's
I don't
Stephen
see-
Glass.
I don't see Cheryl Daniels yet.
Molly, thank you for your work.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh, and there's Tenley. I see
I
Tenley,
see
Eric,
Eric's just joining us.
Cheryl, Judith, Maggie, Karen. Oh, wow. It's like old friend week here. I love it. As I'm going through, I see Bill Icaria, Karen Olness, John Franklin. Oh, this is wonderful.
I am emailing Cheryl right now.
Neil Hibbler, Judy Thomas. Yeah, this is great. All right. We're almost there. I think we've got what, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute?
One more
Hey,
minute.
Bridget, this is Maggie. I just got off the phone with Lane. He's going to try to call in, but his signal is really bad out there.
Yeah.
But he's going to try, but it was a difficult phone call anyway, for connection.
Okay, great. And actually what I did, Maggie, is I contacted him and he gave me a list of his thoughts and opinions that he wanted to share with all the other ASCH members. on being part of
Perfect.
the executive committee. And then, of course, you can also jump in since you're one of the leaders in the educational division as well, and just give a thought or two if he hasn't covered everything. Because
Sounds good.
you've been instrumental, really instrumental.
We maybe want to give it another minute or two, Bridget. We still have people jumping on, so nobody misses the very beginning. And I will just say for everyone on the call and all the presenters, this is being recorded. We had some members ask that, so we'll share this call with the ASH membership afterwards. So and there's Cheryl Daniel, she just joined on.
Oh, great. Okay, well then we can pretty well start then, start the program when Cheryl gets on, because she's the first presenter.
She's
in a
on.
panel.
Yep.
Cheryl's here.
So in a minute,
Yeah.
we'll turn it over, I think, to Linda to welcome everyone. I will just say, if you please put yourself on mute if you're not already muted, and we'll go through all the other specifics in just a moment. So with that, Linda, you ready to get us started?
I am. So I'd like to welcome everybody. Good evening or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. Thank you for participating in this town hall. I am Linda Thompson. I'm the moderator of the Board of Governors, and I will be moderating tonight's meeting. Today is an opportunity to have a polite, constructive conversation about the proposed changes to the bylaws and our governance structure of ASH. It's an organization that we all care deeply about, or we wouldn't be here on this Sunday evening. For the better part of this past year, the executive committee has gathered opinions from the membership and our new management company 712 about how to make ASH's cumbersome governance structure more functional. The EC listened to what people had to say and then spent hundreds of hours developing and designing a new structure to move ASH forward into the future. The new bylaws were created, then they were approved by the executive committee. They were approved in an overwhelming majority by the Board of Governors. And the next step in the process is to have them approved by our membership. So tomorrow you will all be receiving an email ballot. And to pass these bylaws, we need 2/3 of the responding members to vote in favor of these bylaws. Tonight's town hall meeting is an opportunity to clarify any remaining questions that you may have concerning these changes. I'd like to encourage you to pay attention to what this meeting was designed to address, to listen to what is discussed and ask questions in a constructive, respectful manner to help you understand. This meeting was not designed to support an argument. It was designed to support learning together and the creation of a shared understanding of how we collectively can support the future of our society. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the panelists for this meeting and the order in which they'll be speaking. First, Dr. Cheryl Daniel, a longtime member and past president and also past moderator of the Board of Governors and a member of the Bylaws Committee for years and years. She will be offering a historical perspective of how ASH ended up with this complex governance structure. Then Dr. Bridget Bongard, the current president of ASH, will discuss the rationale for the proposed changes in the governance from a structure that had both an executive committee, a board of governors, to just one board of directors and who the composition of that board. I don't know what that was. Dr. Eric Wilmarth, who's chair of the Bylaws Committee, will then present the proposed bylaw changes that have been already approved by the Executive Committee and the Board of Governors, but must go out to the membership for their final approval. Dr. David Alter, who's secretary of the ASH Executive Committee and chair of the ASH Ethics Committee, will share a visual representation of the mission in which the ASH EC has been engaged in pursuit of a more representative governance structure. Deb Benching, who is chair of the Component Society Division, will share how these changes will affect representation of component societies in the proposed governance structure. And then we hope that Dr. Lane Wagaman can call in. He's without internet connection right now. His remarks on the importance of having education represented on this Board of Governors. If he can't get his connection going or phone in, then Dr. Bongart has his comments and she will share them with us. After this, you will then have the opportunity to ask clarifying questions to any of the presenters or other members of the executive committee or our executive director, Molly Mullins of 712. You will signal either by using the Zoom icon for raise your hand or physically raise your hand so we can see it. And you will have a 1 minute limit time to ask your question. And at the end of your time, you will hear this noise. When someone is speaking, no interruptions will be welcomed and all other participants will be muted. You may disagree with an idea, but under no circumstances will I allow an attack on an individual. If that occurs, the offending individual will be immediately muted and not allowed another opportunity to speak. After all who have asked their questions, if there are more questions and they would like a second opportunity to ask a question, and we haven't reached yet our 7 o'clock deadline, then you will have an opportunity to ask a second question if everybody who wanted to ask a first question has had that opportunity. So that being said, we will now go to Dr. Cher Daniels.
Greetings to all. As Linda said, I've worn many hats for ASCH. I was the first moderator of the Board of Governors, serving from 1995 to 99. And that plus the other roles I've served in at the particular times I was in them are, I think, why I was asked to speak tonight. There was a major bylaws change in the 1990s that resulted in the BG having its own moderator. Before this, the president ran the annual BG meeting. It's an old saying among people who have worked on organizational bylaws that if you want to know what crises an organization has faced, read the successive versions of its bylaws. This particular change came about because of a long-held sense that the BG meetings were run in ways that were profoundly unfair. Parliamentary procedure was used and abused in such a way that insiders would prepare in advance who would make what motion, who would second it, who would speak to the motion with what point, and then who would move to call the question, a procedure that can result in further discussion being cut off. Often the components section representatives felt rushed to make decisions without understanding the ramifications of a yay or nay vote. The change to a separate moderator was intended to correct this disempowerment. Thus, our current structure was born of well-earned distrust. We're now being asked to consider whether a separate Board of Governors makes sense today. Our structure, in which one board votes to approve or reject actions taken by another, is extremely unusual. It guarantees that major changes will not be made too quickly, but it also results in a ship whose course cannot be changed, even in the face of imminent obstacles. Moreover, it ensures then anyone who was once elected president of ASCH has a lifetime vote on all matters that come before the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Cher. And Dr. Bongart. You're muted, Bridget.
That may have been a value, Linda. No, just teasing. Cher, thanks for that. I think that was really informative. And so now that all the members kind of understand the platform, what happened was that basically your executive committee was comprised of a number of individuals, but did not include the component society, did not include the educational division, which is one of our major thrusts in ASCH. I mean, that is our mission, but yet they didn't have a seat on the table. And the component societies, who I feel, or we all feel, are incredibly important, because at grassroots level, they're the ones that are really they're in the trenches, maintaining the exchange of hypnosis ideas and more. And really supporting new members as well as old members in the growth and development of clinical hypnosis. So when I became president, I immediately saw this is a cumbersome structure that we have. Number two, when the executive committee would make recommendations, then once a year, those recommendations would go to the Board of Governors, and the Board of Governors would either say yay or nay. So a lot of times we couldn't get anything done for 2 or 3 years, because if the Board of Governors wanted more information, then it had to be tabled for another year. And in the meantime, there was a new president, a new cabinet, and so things just really became stymied. And so a more modern approach was to create a board of directors. And so we created divisions, so that educational division, all the different components, including TCW, IC, the standards of training, and all different things would come up under one person, and they could present that at the executive committee. Everybody could hear, and everybody could see how it impacted whatever division they were running. So a very mature and comprehensive discussion could occur, and then a much better solution could be created and voted on. And then that would move forward. And of course, any decision that's made on a board of directors would be looked at over time to make sure that it was still relevant, still what we needed to have to move business forward. So at the Board of Governors, there was the past presidents, the component societies, and the moderators. So we actually took someone, I can need to mute there.
At phoenix.edu.
Okay, so at the board, so what we did for the board of directors was we actually brought components from the Board of Governors. We brought the component societies on as a division, the past presidents, so we had institutional memory on as a division. So this mature idea and well-developed idea also needed bylaws and ethics, so that should there be a decision to be made, it's looked at from all different angles, so that we could really make a great decision that would benefit ASCH. So in all the president's letters, I've moved this concept forward step by step, showing you what's occurred. Like Linda said, we took it to the Board of Governors, and with the executive committee and the Board of Governors, there was a majority vote to say that we felt confident enough that although it's not a perfect reorganizational structure, it's a great one to start. It's a great platform, and then over the next year, we'll see if we need to make changes in that to make it flow even better for ASCH.
Thank you, Dr. Bongart. And Dr. Wilmar.
Okay, well, unlike Cheryl, I have not been on the committee for looking at bylaws for years and years of this organization anyway. I have been a past president. I've also been past president of both ASCH and Division 30. And so my frustration with our current bylaws comes from having worked with other organizations. And I guess Division 30 would be my role model, with having a fairly straightforward set of bylaws and then a very detailed set of policy and procedures. I don't know if you know Joe Green, who's does a great job of keeping the current policy and procedures manual, so that a lot of the nitty-gritty day-and-day stuff that goes on is really not something that should be canonized in the bylaws, but can be part of a policy and procedure manual that says when is something due? When should something be done? You know, when should nominations be identified for? You know, the day in, day out type of operational things can be in the policy and procedures manual, leaving the bylaws to be somewhat more simple. So with a lot of help from Molly and 712, we redid the format of the bylaws. Molly, I think everyone has a copy of that now, don't they, to view, so that I won't go over the details of that right now, but the intent is to make this a little more user-friendly, practical as we go on a day-by-day basis. There is still a good bit of work to do because, you know, if this is approved by the membership, then we will be, you know, going back to the policy and procedure manual to get in some of the details of that. So I think it's long overdue. I think there's been some wonderful intention behind this. And hopefully we can continue with the process.
Thank you, Dr. Wilmar. And now, Dr. Alter. You're muted.
Good evening, or whatever time of day it is for you. I am, as Linda said, a member of the executive committee. I'm not sure which stint number it is, but I've been here before and have really enjoyed being able to participate at the EC level. I am a visual thinker and found it very, very helpful to be able to capture some of the work that we've done visually as a way for those of you who are also visual thinkers to be able to grasp perhaps a little bit more easily what prompted the work that we've done over the last year, and it might help shape and inform the questions that you want to ask as the speakers finish up and hand it over to you. So I'm going to share my screen here and just quickly walk you through what we did. So what gave rise to what is coming before you? Essentially, it was three different things. The need for reorganization actually came as a bottom-up process. It emerged in response to complaints and concerns received at the EC level. And it helped us, those concerns that were expressed, shape the discussions that we had at the EC so that we could organize our thinking and our discussions and our proposals around core organizational values. The goal of that, of course, was to create changes that supported or contained positive organizational benefits. Specifically, the complaints that we had received were chronic lack of responsiveness. Many people and component section leaders or individual members of component sections complained that there seemed to be a disconnect between what they needed and what they did and ASCH leadership. There was a sense of a lack of adequate representativeness in ASCH leadership. There was a chronic lack of engagement between individual members and the leadership of ASCH. And there was a growing sense that the organization was losing contemporary clinical relevance in the way it was set up. What values came out of that? It came to our attention and our commitment to create proposals that led to greater transparency, greater timeliness of organizational responsiveness, much improved engagement with underrepresented groups and individuals. And I think that's a really important one. I consider myself a member of the graying, white-haired, white-skinned group. And unfortunately, we're overrepresented in the organization. So it's important that we continue to empower and invite underrepresented groups and individuals. Another value was to seek ways, pathways for greater influence through organizational democratization and to enrich the clinical relevance and proficiency that is represented by this organization in terms of hypnosis and hypnosis education. The organizational benefits were supported by improved financial stability that we sought in collaboration with Molly and 712, which has been a benefit to us, improved organizational structure and governance practices, improved pathways to facilitate inclusiveness through technology-based resources, which frankly COVID pushed us into, but I think we would have had to do it anyway, and improved engagement with our younger clinical cohort. So another dimension of what we've been up to this last year is to really focus on what is the challenge that we faced and what is the response that we offered. Essentially, we want, as a executive committee and hopefully a board of directors, to remain oriented toward values that prompted the need for the organization, to be able to recognize factual distortions of what hypnosis is or isn't, and what the organizational structure is or isn't, and the limits on the power and influence of that organization. So it's not an out of control, top down organizational structure. We want to be able to lean into fear generators and really work toward facilitating the organization's emergent potential. We want to orient toward acceptance of near-term risks in favor of intermediate and longer-term benefits. And finally, to make sure that as members of the leadership group and whoever that becomes in the future, that we remain true to the essence of leadership skills. So with that, I thank you and turn things back. Stop sharing the screen and get out of the way of what comes next.
Thank you, David, very much. Unfortunately, the latter half of it, your audio was full of static, but we could hear a little bit of what you were saying and could appreciate your wonderful schematics. So Deb Benching, who is chair of the Component Society Division, will now share her thoughts. Deb.
Thanks, Linda. And the good thing about what David was showing us was visual. So even though he was a little garbled, we could still capture the thinking, right? So one of the things that I think is important for people to know is that under the existing model, that I actually found it quite interesting what Cheryl shared preceded, the 90s preceded my membership in ASCH. And so it was interesting that the part of the reason for changing it was that component members felt rushed to make decisions, because as component members going to the BOG, it's like getting all this information thrown at you at once and then having to go through it in a marathon time. I did not find productive, and that's what I heard from most component presidents also who were at the BOG. So in looking at this, there's several benefits, I think, to this new model for components, especially, and I actually think it benefits ASCH, because I think the intersection of components and ASCH being intensified, the collaboration existing. The most common question I would get from people is, well, how are components and ASCH related? And I think that under the new proposed model, that makes it much improved, because for the last year, I've been an invited guest to attend the executive committee meetings, no voting power. And it's really allowed me to meet and get feedback from component leaders and directly bring that and represent that as information is coming up. There's been input, collective feedback I've gotten from different component leadership was directly represented. So being able to share that information directly, having input into ideas as they form and providing feedback, those are all tremendous benefits for components under this new proposed model. The other piece that would be, I'm just really excited about and have gotten information from, is to have a direct vote in decisions. rather than being able to simply provide feedback, being able to literally have a vote and a say in what's going on is really important for components. It also eliminates the minimal voice once a year. Under the current model, Bridget is the 4th president that I've been the chair of the component sections under. The variation of how much feedback or input from components has been very dependent on the sitting president's willingness to engage with me in my role. And that is very greatly. So the new model, in my view, really addresses all those things and really allows us to move towards greater collaboration. Yep. And have a permanent seat rather than sporadic input.
Thank you very much, Deb. Dr. Wagaman, are you able to hear us, and can we hear you by phone? I take that's a no. So we'll, Bridget, you have his comments. Will you
I
share?
do. I do. So when we changed, when I became your president last March, and we saw these glaring deficiencies, the executive committee dug right in and created this new model to try and bring people to the table who needed to be there. Just like you heard from the component societies, the educational division was not represented at all. So we asked Lane Wagaman to be the chief or the head of the educational division, which was CHET, DLF, TF, distance learning, IC, TCW, and certification. So that's a huge catchment that was in different silos. So now it comes up through one chief, and that way everyone can then give input, and coming from the bottom and then going back down. And so Lane has felt that by grouping committees and task force into related divisions, we create higher levels of awareness of committees, functions, plans, etc., as well as increased cohesiveness and cooperation. His second point is that by doing this, we also increase the awareness of impacts specific committees' activities have on each other, which is very beneficial. We increase potential pool of interested, experienced workshop faculty for workshops IC and TCW. It broadened the specialty areas of faculty to be able to provide specialty included training when for workshops such as the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and the VA Hospital initiatives. It decreased duplications, gaps, omissions, and provided one clearly identifiable site to respond to questions and concerns. Throughout the extended period of virtual workshop, we have seen younger members who are tech comfortable and actively interested in more intermediate and quick learning and participation advancement, and for whom virtual workshops provide positive training experiences at significantly reduced expense. So this was yet another initiative that was able to be formulated and brought up through this educational division with the help of 712 and the support of the executive committee. And then his thought about the bylaws revisions, he's in support of that. And it's truly viewed as a dynamic and living document open to ongoing consideration of potentially necessary or helpful revisions moving forward. So that's Dr. Wagaman's input.
Thank you, Bridget, for sharing that with us. At this time, we'll open it up to clarifying questions. You can raise your actual hand or your Zoom icon. And Molly will help me peruse all of you on screen. Maureen Turner, unmute yourself.
And any of these can be directed to any of the panelists. It doesn't necessarily have to be the president.
Unfortunately, Maureen, I think you're still on mute. See if I can try to unmute you.
bottom left-hand corner, the little microphone.
Or hold down the space bar.
Yeah, oh, all right. I lost the whole screen. Okay, so I don't have to come back.
We can hear you now, so you may
All
direct
right,
your
good.
question to anyone on the
Yes.
the
Well,
panel.
that's one of my questions. I'm not sure in what, let me just say, I'm very impressed and supportive of everything I've heard so far. And I've lots of experience with boards, and I understand the complexity. At least I've got an idea of what led you to this. Where I have not found a home, and what I've heard so far is membership. And that's a particular interest I have, not only in diversity, but allowing, frankly, nurses to participate. And that was a big battle not so long ago, which we lost, those of us who are nurses. So I'm just wondering, where does membership come? And we've lost members, and certainly nurses have the most contact with patients and are a huge block of the healthcare organization that, frankly, we're not serving or embracing. And I am a nurse.
Thanks, Maureen. I want to share this question with Maggie Dickens, who's the chair of our membership committee. And Maggie, are you there?
And perhaps, Molly, you could put up on the screen also the schemata so you can see how membership is part of the board of directors.
Yes. Okay, Maggie may have stepped off. So Maureen.
I stepped
Oh, no,
off
there
and I
you
heard
are.
the last little bit. So if I could just get a summary, I can definitely speak to this.
I think Maureen wanted to know basically how we're going to refresh the membership and really represent people such as nursing, our nursing professional colleagues.
Absolutely. Hopefully I turned on my camera so y'all can hopefully see me. The look that or the goal that we're having with membership right now is wanting to engage some of our early career professionals and have them serve as mentors to those who are new. And so we're hoping that anyone who comes to Power of Words, which is available, I believe, to nurses, as well as any of our level 1 trainings, to have a mentor, someone who they can see, hey, in just a few years, we'll be able to achieve this level of understanding of hypnosis and using it in our practices, and perhaps even being involved in ASCH. And then hopefully getting our ECPs involved with a mentor that is much more seasoned, and kind of fostering this passing of the baton process versus having all of the knowledge of how ASCH works and the inner workings and even just the magic of the society being held by a select few. So that's kind of the thought process right now. One of the issues that we have when it comes to the current layout of our membership membership committee is that we are so disjointed from some of the other committees within ASCH. So being able to have a more direct line with the standards of training and those kinds of things, committees will allow us to facilitate membership faster and also be able to understand where are we getting most of our members, which workshops are our most successful in converting participants into members, and then kind of where are we losing those. So once we get, if we're able to get much more cohesive, then I think membership will be able to reach those goals.
Thank you, Maggie.
And I think the other piece of Maureen's question was bringing nurses on board as full members. And so those are things, Maureen, that we need to, once we get this structure in place, if everybody does agree on it, that's when the board of directors can look at those type of things and say, okay, now, how do we want to proceed with some of these topics that had been sidelined in the past, and how do we refresh our membership and also get our members involved in these committees? Did that answer your question, Maureen?
Yes, we can look forward to addressing this. It is very helpful because it's been a long time.
Bridget, may I add to that? Because I was on the task force that looked at adding the nurses as members. May I address that?
Please.
Before we move, in this last year, 2 year, I mean, kind of the 2 COVID year time frame is a blur. During that time, I was on the task force that Joe Zastro was leading, and I was co-leading with him, that we invited people from both sides of the issue. Let all RNs in versus no, you have to be masters only. And I'm very proud to say that both sides, and these were key people who were against bringing nurses on at the beginning and caused a lot of the slowdown on it, they were on the team. And we were able to come to a consensus of making our task force recommendation to the EC that recommended allowing all nurses, because it's about licensing, not how many years you were in school. And so even the quote opposition, in that light and understanding, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And that was our recommendation a year and a half ago to the EC, is that, you know, that it's about licensing. And it's about accountability then to your board to practice within your scope of practice. And then in addition to that, working with our education folks to create some tracks of education that were very pertinent for nurses, for doctors, for dentists, for psychologists, you know, that kind of thing. So that's where we left that. So we had a great team. We did some good work, and it was then to be sent up to the EC.
Thank you, Deb. Let's get back to the clarifying questions as far as the bylaws go. Does anyone else have a question? Corey Hammond. Unmute yourself.
The current leadership has not been willing to allow a con statement to go out to the membership, and so I want to speak up about that. I have no issue in streamlining and eliminating the check and balance of the Board of Governors. With that change, things are streamlined and speeded up by that elimination. However, the bylaws, education, ethics, certification, and membership are committees.
Is there a clarifying question here, Corey?
No, I want to make a statement. I have a minute, don't I?
For a clarifying
question. They are simply being renamed as divisions. These committees are made up of members appointed by the president, and I want to emphasize that simply renaming committees as divisions is inappropriate. And saying that they can elect a member out of their small committees, I think is a phony issue, because these little committees members serve at the pleasure of the president. This proposal therefore gives the president undue influence and power. The committee chairs usually already attend the meetings and give input, and they don't need a vote. My position is that all members of the board should be elected by the membership. And therefore, I strongly urge members to vote against this proposal until it's brought back and separating out the issues.
You know, Dr. Hammond, I appreciate very much that you support the streamlining. And the spirit of this, I see where you're going, but the spirit of this is a little bit different in that what our members needed to know was that there were big gaps and holes, and we did not have chairmen for a lot of these committees. People had retired, whatever. And so I asked for a general step up, please, to help us out. People did. If you want to call that an appointment, I said, thank you very much. I appreciate you doing this so we can at least get some stabilization. Secondly, the other piece that I would really love to have people understand is we want our members to come to these committees and begin having that leadership training and rise up to be able to become a chair of one of these divisions. It's important that we all felt on the EC and also most of the BG that these divisions are imperative. It's not a committee, and they sit there and they have a vote because they're coming and looking at all different phases of the question or the information that's being presented at the EC for vote. So I would like to say to you, thank you very much, Dr. Hammond. And I would also like to say that we will continue to refine this to improve this structure like Phil Schenefeld had asked. Can we please just look at this again in a year to see how we can better fine tune it? But the point is to get the membership coming up and participating and making our future leaders at ASCH, just like David Alter said. We just don't want a graying organization. We want these vital ideas coming up through. So that's the intent and purpose, Dr. Hammond. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bridget. Other clarifying questions? Phil Schenefeld. Unmute yourself.
So my understanding is that roughly 2/3 of the new board would be elected by the membership and 1/3 would be appointed by the president or the committees. Is that correct?
No, because we want those divisions, Phil, to, so for instance, in education, rather than just having somebody as a member think, oh, I'll be the head of the membership, I'll be the membership committee or the educational division. We want those leaders to come up through so that they've had mature experience and understand that whole division. So no, in the future, these, as I said to Dr. Hammond, it's just how it fell with the appointments. However, we want these divisions to elect their own. Now, the membership will still have membership at large and other people to appoint to the board of directors. That's true. Mm-hmm. So that's a democratic way of doing it, so to speak. It's not an autocratic process by any stretch.
Okay, that still didn't really answer my question. My question is, will the president or the committee people choose people that will be voting members on the board of directors? In other words, two-thirds of the people will be elected by the body at large, the whole community, but there's another 1/3 that will not, and they will all have equal votes, is my understanding.
I think what you're saying is pretty accurate, Phil, in that the, like say the past presidents will select their own representative to it, so that will be elected by the past presidents, not by the whole membership at large. So they won't be appointed by the president per se, but they will be elected, hopefully by each one of the groups on that. I believe there will still some be that it will be necessary for the president to appoint. I'm not sure right off the top of the hand which one those will be, but there should be some of them, but it will be a mix between those who are elected by the full membership and those who are elected within the groups themselves.
Thanks, Eric the Older.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Anyone
Linda,
else
I
have
see
their hands
Harvey.
raised? I'm sorry, Holly.
I was just saying Harvey has his hand raised.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One is membership still declining in the association?
Apparently, since 7/12 took over and we immediately redid the website and made tremendous improvements in the educational processes, so our memberships could experience a much more user-friendly tool. Membership has actually increased by about 50%.
Okay.
And
great.
it's exciting. And we're
Will
just
the-
thrilled. Yeah.
Will the monthly meetings of the board of directors mean that there'll be monthly decision-making directly affecting society functioning on an ongoing basis, not just once a year? Is that the plan? That's the plan. Okay. And the board of directors will be meeting virtually monthly? Because there is something in the bylaws about paying people to transportation or whatever, travel money. And with all these people on the board, the question is, can the society afford to pay for all the people if they were traveling? But if they're meeting virtually most of the time, it makes perfect sense.
So the monthly trip to Hawaii are out, huh?
Right. So I mentioned to Bridget earlier my favorite quote from Heraclitus, which is nobody steps in the same river twice because the river's flowing. And I think the more we can do with the design of this organization that makes it more nimble on a day-to-day, month-to-month way of functioning to respond both to the developmental processes going on in hypnosis and to the actual environmental messes that we face with COVID and God knows what else. I think it makes perfect sense to change the organization because it has to change. Everything has to change continuously. And I think this is a much more flexible system. I don't think that having things, the president's elected yearly, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't seem to me that the society is going to be just at the whim of one person. I don't see that as a big threat. And the people who step up into that job seem to me to be people of goodwill. Otherwise, they don't take the job. And so I like this. I like the change. I like change anyway, but I think this change makes perfect sense at a time when we need to be a lot more flexible and, as I say, nimble because of the rapidity of everything else that's changing around us.
Thank you, Harvey. Your time is up. Eric Spiegel, I see your hand up.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm just a little bit of a stickler for clarity, and I wonder if Phil Schenefeld's question was fully answered. So if it's all right, I'd like to just revisit that question. I haven't been a direct part of drafting this, but my understanding from looking at everything was that, yes, Phil, approximately a third would be nominated by the president. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. And the reason I think that it's important to have that clarity is, one, for people to just consider, is that, actually, excuse me, I'm not being clear here. No, I think my understanding, and this is the confusion, it's a third would not be directly elected by the membership, correct? I think that the president is just nominating them for a year until the committee can do so. And I just think that that's a really important distinction for people to understand, because if you have 2/3 of the BOD elected by the membership, one has to consider, number one, on a quantitative level, is that enough? I think that's an important question for people to think about. But I think the processes that David Alter, that Deb Benching, that Bridget have spoken to are really important because, in my experience, this process of naming people to committees is one of the best ways to get new blood into the organization and to give them experience So
Thank
if you have, for example, someone who's on the committee and then have the opportunity, once they've served some time on their committee, to be voted as chair by their fellow committee members, that
That's
gives
it.
another pathway for people to be able to serve the organization. So I just wanted to make that point and just clarify that, and just want to make sure that that's understood, if that's correct.
It is correct, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we want to do. Empower people, you know, and get them engaged. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
And are there other hands raised? Molly, do you see other hands? We want to have everyone have their first chance to speak before we go back for any second.
I see Phil's hand, but Phil has already spoken. That's all that I see.
Okay, then we will go back, and Corey, you have 1 minute, and it's a clarifying question.
Corey, you're muted.
You're muted.
The members of those committees, those 5 committees, the membership is made up of people appointed by the president who serve at the pleasure of the president. To say that a committee of 6 or even 8 people should be able to have a representative on the Board of Governors voting gives incredible power to the president, who can stack things in their favor. And I think every member should be elected. All these committee chairs currently come to executive committee meetings. There's absolutely no reason for them to be able to vote. And like I said, it just gives undue influence and power to the president. And I urge people to vote against this proposal. Let it come back to us in a refined form where we can split those issues out.
Does
Again,
anyone-
to help Linda in the moderation, if everyone, this is for questions, and we're not going back for statements. So if people have other questions about the bylaws, that's the purpose of our call tonight. We have a few more minutes remaining.
Eric?
Anyone else have their hands raised?
Eric Spiegel?
I think his might
I'm
still be
sorry,
up
I
and
didn't know how to
running.
take the hand off. I don't have another question. I want to give other people a chance to speak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know how they go away either. I'm trying to get that to disappear too.
Where you put it
The
up, you
host
can take it down.
The host can take it down as well.
Phil Schenefeld, do you have a question?
Yes. My question is, I didn't see any provision for the Nominations and Elections Committee in this plan. And I'm wondering, was that an omission of oversight, or how will that be dealt with?
I can address that, and that would be a part of the policy and procedures manual, rather than a part of the bylaws themselves.
Thank you, Eric. And Maggie Dickens, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I have a question. It kind of goes along with the last question. In the bylaws, the way they are structured now, is a thought, how do I say this? Is there a thinking that this will help in having more people willing to be a part of the nominations each year, where we've seen such a decline, where we've had some uncontested nominations? So do we think that having more people on committees and getting involved more will get us more people willing to be part of leadership?
Yes. Yes, that's the whole thrust. I mean, that's one of the thrusts behind all of this. It's not somebody at the top with unbridled power doing all this stuff. No, not at all. This is educating people, making them feel welcome, listening to their ideas, bringing them on board, helping them develop ASH for the future. So that's one of the reasons why we feel very passionately about this model being a good model, to start with. It's not perfect. It's perfectly imperfect or perfectly, whatever. It's not perfect, but it's a great springboard. It is immensely improved over the structure that we have now that is incredibly dysfunctional in being able to conduct business in a timely fashion. So for that's why we're bringing it to the membership. We will continue to work to bring these ideas to fruition. We've heard some great things tonight, and they're all taking note. And as we move forward, we'll continue to address them with the board of directors if that's voted through the membership.
And if I may, just to add for everyone on this call, in case they're not familiar, the board of governors, the executive committee worked on this plan for the year. They put this forth to the board of governors, who overwhelmingly 24-4 voted to approve it. So the entire support system within ASH voted to approve this, to bring this to the membership, which will be voted on tomorrow. So the entire leadership structure has been incredibly supportive and behind this, working on it for the past year. And as someone who does this for 20 years for a living, running trade and society organizations, it's commendable to see that much support as this project goes back and forth. So I wanted to make sure everyone on the call knew that this has already been approved, and this final step is having the membership vote on it tomorrow.
I want to add to just response to Maggie's question. So in my role as components chair, I've had a lot of communication with the different component leaders. And as we've worked on having more voice in some of the changes that have taken place, I've heard several people say, gosh, it makes me think about wanting to get involved in volunteering. So that directly speaks to what our hope is.
Thank you. And that is our intent and purpose. And it's exciting. It's really good.
It is. We're coming to the end of this hour. Does anyone else who hasn't spoken have a clarifying question? Because the vote will come to the membership tomorrow via email. We encourage you all to check your emails, even your spam, in case it went there. And we appreciate all the time that our panelists have spent tonight, and also all those interested in the future of our society and moving it forward to a more effective governance structure. And many thanks to all the people who put hours and hours of work into developing these bylaws. And I hope any questions were answered this evening. And
Linda, I don't mean to interrupt. I just see Eric just raised his hand for a moment. Do we have a moment for him to comment or question?
Do you have a
question? I don't know if people have seen the question from Elizabeth Getzoff Testa in the chat. And the question says, can things be further refined if voted for? I think that's a really good question to be addressed. And my suspicion is that, perhaps you might have a solid majority of people that overall like the proposal, but have some, questions or concerns about certain aspects of who has voting rights. So I think it's a good question to maybe try to address, like if the membership votes to approve the proposal, is there room for refinement within the bylaws, the new bylaw structure?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. That's the whole spirit of this. We just need to get this structure changed, and then we begin to further refine it. Then we begin to redo the policy and procedure manual. So this is a work in progress, but it's a massive improvement that allows us to really be able to move and get some things changed that need to be changed. And we will continue to improve things. It's not perfect, but it is a great, great document. It's a great organizational structure that gives us a firm base of operations. And then from there, we will continue to refine it.
Bridget, can I speak to that and give some evidence of how this has already worked really well within ASCH?
Thank you. Yes.
So I'm a member of the Education and Training Committee, and we revisited the standards of training for level 1. It took us 2 years to write. And over that time, we used the feedback from participants. It was voted on and approved, and we're still creating a list of things that we're getting even today of, oh, that didn't work out as well as we thought it would. And so when we go back and revisit it, we have this ongoing list. We're in the middle of revising level 2 as well, and we're doing the same thing. The Education and Training Committee is putting a pause on going back and rehauling level 1 for a couple of reasons, a little bit of burnout. The other is we want to go into level 2. And the third is giving enough traction to see what is really working and what isn't versus it worked in one workshop versus another. And I see the bylaws here doing the same thing, where we're wanting to implement changes, see what works with a fair amount of time to notice that we're still in the middle of pandemic. We're moving things so fluidly with in-person and not, and being able to say, this is a living document is important. However, it's not something to be revisited every time we need a tweak, just because we want to keep that list going. So that's how the Education and Training Committee goes about it. And I think we've talked about that on EC as well.
Thank you. We've reached the top of the hour, and Harvey, did you have other words to say?
I have one other question, and I went through the bylaws, but does it say somewhere that ongoing meetings of the board of directors are able to be hybrid? People might go in person or might still be virtual?
It does allow for virtual meetings.
But combined hybrid?
The way it's written is that it'll be determinate at the situation at hand. So if we're in an environment where it needs to be all virtual, we would know that. If we was particular training wanted to be in person, it has the fluidity in that structure.
Thank you.
Of course.
So once again, thank you for your time. Vote. You'll get the ballots tomorrow. And any closing comments by Bridget or Molly?
I just want to say that I've worked with a lot of leaders, and Bridget Bongard is one of the most impressive humans I've worked with in a long time. And I hope that she knows how much work she's put into this, and the amount of feedback and comments I've gotten from members who have never met me, that just like Maggie is saying, is excited. It's because her vision has pushed this for the past year. And it's been a privilege of mine to work with you.
Wow. Well, I really have to say that it's the strength of all of it. I appreciate that. And it is my passion to see ASCH healthy, vital, and delivering better clinical hypnosis to our patients, clients, and more. But I also want to say that we could not have done it without 712. The vast amount of experience that you've had, the depth of marketing and education, and just all the different components that you have. I think it's made us an incredibly stronger organization. So I want our members to know that. And they've already felt that with the immediate turnaround of the website, the immediate turnaround of education, and there's more. So you've got a team here, ASCH members. You've got a really great team. And Joe Tramontana is coming on as the new president, and he's been with us every step of the way. So there won't just be another, oh, what do we do now? No, we're actually got a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan that we're working towards to continue to make things better for you. So we really hope that you'll vote for this board of directors reorganizational and the bylaws reorganizational structure. And if you have any questions, you can call me, email me. I'm happy to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you once again for participating in this evening's town hall. And good night to all.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, and Cheryl and everyone else and all the members that came. Aloha.
Molly, do you have a second to stay on?
Sure.
I have a membership office question. For 8 years, when I've called the ASCH office, I get an answer. Someone answers the phone and can help me. And I don't know if it's just been the wrong time of year or what, but I called several times, got voicemail and put in an extension that I don't know what to put. And then also sent an email, and I'm not sure what to expect. I called the number at the bottom of the website. Do people typically answer that? And I left a voicemail.
I'm wondering if you're calling an old number.
I'm calling the number on the ASCH website. In the 410, that number.
John, what is it that you need help with in particular? Who are you trying to contact for what?
Well, I had questions about the annual meeting. Some of those have been answered. It looks like you've switched to virtual anyhow. And needing some information to try to get the VA to pay for me to go there and so forth. I think it's all kind of a moot point now. Because it looked like the website changed from Friday that it's going to be a virtual annual meeting. John, if
you want to email me directly or call me directly, I can certainly help you, but I need just if I have more information on what it is you're looking for.
Sure. I'm looking if I have a question to be able to talk to someone in the office.
You can always talk to me.
Okay.
And I will direct it to the appropriate person. Absolutely. Send me an email, give me a call. My number's in all of these registrations. You have my cell and my direct office line.
Yes, I in this email. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you all.
Sure. Thank you for allowing me to ask that question. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.